What if I told you that there exists a belief in the Catholic Church where one man, this one, is free from error while proclaiming certain truths? Intruded? Good. Welcome. This is the Scalpel Saint, and today we are going to be unraveling one of the most controversial topics in the Catholic Church: Papal Infallibility. Let's get into it. Facts only. So, what is Papal Infallibility? It is a doctrine of the Catholic Church that asserts that Pope is preserved from error when he proclaims by a definitive act, to mean that whatever is proclaiming must be stated that, you know what, I am actually giving an papal infallible, that I'm actually giving a doctrine on what? Concerning faith or morals. Let me be able to highlight for you to be able to actually see it. So, faith or morals, okay? It strictly applies to teachings on faith and morals when spoken ex cathedra, to mean from the chair of St. Peter. He must be a pope and he must be an active pope, and he must be in the capacity as the universal shepherd of the church. But here's where it gets interesting. Even the popes themselves acknowledge this fact. Pope Benedict XVI actually stated that the pope is not an oracle. He is infallible in very rare situations, as we know. We are going to actually see those particular situations where the pope is actually infallible. So they are very rare situations when he whatever he speaks in terms of faith or morals is actually free from sin. Well, what did Pope John the 23rd said? That I'm only infallible if I speak infallibly, but I shall never do that. So I am not infallible. To mean that it is actually in some instances. Let's get some biblical foundation. So we've gotten a kind of overview what papal infallibility is. But where did the Catholics actually get this doctrine? Where did it come from? You see, on the basis of Mark, Luke, Corinthians, the Catechism of the Catholic Church describes Peter as holding first place among the apostles. You will actually note that in Mark, Simon did not own the word Peter. It was given to him by Jesus. And Peter, as we know, means rock, where the church will be built upon. So that actually means that Peter is the first among the apostles. And it speaks of Peter as the rock, on which, because of Peter's faith, Christ said in Matthew, he would build his church, which he declared would be victorious of the powers of death. Now, in Luke, Jesus gave Peter the mission to keep his faith after every lapse and to strengthen his brothers in it. This is something we shall come to look at it later on. Because the question then is, does this mean that the Pope is always free from error when declaring some of these statements? And this is one of those important points to note, that the mission to keep his faith after every lapse, that Christ will always be with Peter even after every lapse. And then the Catechism goes on to say that it is the power of the keys that Jesus promised in Matthew to be for Peter alone, and as signifying authority to govern the house of God. That is the church, an authority that the church, after his resurrection, confirmed for Peter by instructing him in John to feed Christ's sheep. This is a statement that sometimes is controversial, because the question is, were those keys given to Peter alone, or were they given to the apostles, or were they given to all of us? And the point is, in Matthew, if you read Matthew carefully, you'll actually come to realize that it is Peter alone. But of course, even if you take it the other way, maybe Peter together with other apostles, then it means that Peter must be included. And that's why we are seeing that it's a signifying authority. Therefore, the power to bind and loose, conferred on all the apostles jointly and to Peter in particular, is seen in the Catechism of the Church as authority to absorb sins, to pronounce judgments on doctrine, and to make decisions on church discipline. Now, you see, then it means that it is up for grab, that this particular doctrine can actually be misused. But there are conditions for infallibility. There are conditions that must be met for the Pope to actually state that this doctrine has been protected by the papal infallibility. So, which are these three strict conditions? One is that the Pope must speak ex cathedra, means that he speaks in his official capacity as a supreme pastor and the teacher of all Christians. Why are we saying this? Because sometimes the Pope will say that this is just my, official. This is not my. It might be my own private opinion, maybe as a theologian. As a theologian, this might be my private opinion. So, you can just I'm just expressing my view on it. But for it to be a papal infallible, then he must actually speak it and says that this is the official statement from me as the supreme pastor. The doctrine must concern faith or morals. Anything outside this scope, like political opinion, does not qualify. Although, of course, there are some exceptions to it, as we shall see. So, stick to the end. Then the intention must be to bind the entire church universally. It cannot be a casual statement or informal teaching. Now, there's some misconceptions here. One, that the Pope is always infallible. That's false. The truth is that he is infallible only under the specific conditions mentioned above. The second misconception is that infallibility means the Pope is sinless. That's not true. The truth is that the Pope, like every human, is a sinner in need of God's grace. That misconception is that it will be overused. I mean, anytime the Pope might want to give a statement that he wants it to be followed to the latter and without a lot of questions, you'll be pulling up the Papal Infallibility card, and I mean, he uses it. But it will shock you to actually understand how rarely this doctrine has actually been used. For instance, I will give you two examples. One of those is in 1854, when the dogma of the Immaculate Conception, teaching that Mary was conceived with original sin, was established. It was not there before 1854, but the then Pope sat down, viewed it, and actually resorted to give it a papal infallibility. That you cannot question what we have said, that indeed Mary was conceived without original sin. Again, very recently, in the year 1950, the dogma of the Assumption of Mary, teaching that Mary was assumed body and soul into heaven. You cannot disrupt that. It was not before 1950. You cannot ask questions about that. But only those two that have been very explicitly. It has not been used very lately, and therefore it cannot be overused. So, Papa infallibility does not elevate the Pope above the human error in his personal life or other teachings. It is solely a safeguard for the church doctrine. So, what's the purpose? The purpose is not to glorify the Pope, but actually to protect the faithful. You see, infallibility ensures that the church remains united and free from doctrinal error. In a world of conflicting ideologies, where there are so many people coming with so many teachings and so many definitions of the Bible and all that and so forth and so on, then there need to be a guide for Catholics on matters of faith and morals. And if you ask me, this is one of those doctrines that have actually made the church to stand firm, because once we have this proper infallibility, then we don't have that room of a lot of to and fro and all that. And therefore, the two major dogmas that were declared infallibly, including the Immaculate Conception and the Assumption, have deepened the Catholic devotion to Mary and clarified her role in the salvation history. These teachings continue to inspire theological study, art, and prayer within the Church, demonstrating the spiritual fruits of this doctrine. In conclusion, however, a doctrine proposed by a pope as his own opinion, like I will give an example of Pope John the 22nd, not solemnly proclaimed as a doctrine of the church, may be rejected as false, even if it is on a matter of faith and morals, and even more, any view he expresses on other matters. One of those very well known example on a matter of faith and morals that was taught by a pope but rejected by the church is the view that Pope John the 22nd expressed on when the dead can reach the beatific vision. You see, this particular pope expressed that those who die will actually be able to reach the beatific vision. The beatific vision simply means that these who have died can be able to see God face to face. And he taught that those who have died cannot be able to reach to the beatific vision until the judgment day, which was not according to the standards of the then belief that people who die and are saved can actually see heaven, and therefore they are seeing God. And therefore, the church was able to reject that very quickly and Pope, that time, Pope John, was able to revert back to the standard definition or understanding of beatific vision, that actually those who died and are saved are actually be able to see God before judgment day. And therefore, to conclude, allow me to conclude with these very beautiful verses or quotes from one Pope St. John the Paul II, that alongside this infallibility of an ex-cathedral definitions, there is the charism of the Holy Spirit assistance granted to Peter and his successors, so they will not err in matters of faith and morals, but rather shed great light on the Christian people. This charism is not limited to exceptional cases. Look at this. This charism is not limited to exceptional cases. That in as much as you have Papal Infallibility, even all the other instances where Pope delivers informations that are not under Papal Infallibility, then we believe that the Holy Spirit will not or will enable Peter and his successors not to err in matters of faith and morals. Okay? This is suggested even from the words of Christ, who said, I have prayed for you that your faith may not fail. Finally, St. Robert Bellarmine, we ought rightly to presume, as Cardinal Bellarmine declares, that God will never let it happen that a Roman pontiff, even as a private person, becomes a public heretic or an occult heretic. And with that, now that you know the facts, you can see the truth and the myths and appreciate the beauty of this particular teaching. Okay, so if this has sparked your curiosity or you may be having questions, let's keep the conversation ongoing at the comments. Stay curious and stay grounded in the truth. See you next time.